Hello, my name is Sergio Artiaga. I am a teacher at University Prep Charter High School in the Bronx, New York. Although I do teach in the Bronx, I'm originally from Inglewood, California, which is a small, not a small, but a city in Los Angeles. I grew up here and went to college at Occidental College, and I moved to New York for my graduate school work at Teachers College and have remained there ever since, and have been working at University Prep Charter High School for the past 15 years and been teaching for 14 of those years. The topic of ethnic studies is incredibly important to me as someone who identifies as a racial minority, as Mexican American. It is very important for me to know my history, to know my culture, and as a teacher who teaches students of various ethnic backgrounds within my school at University Prep, it is imperative that they are also exposed to ethnic studies classes, regardless of what it is. For the sake of this presentation, and for the sake of my class, I teach Latin American Studies, which is in its first year, first time we ever offer it. And I'll get more into that later. As the title implies, the importance of ethnic studies classes in the high school curriculum, explore what the studies say, what we're talking about in my class, and why it matters. As I said, I'm glad to be able to present at this conference. I wish I could have been there in person, but there's a little picture of me of what I look like. And again, I appreciate the opportunity to even be able to present, even if it is via video. So ethnic studies is defined by CSUN St. Marcos as a study of the histories, experiences, cultures, and social issues of racial ethnic groups in the United States. I specifically focused on the definition by this Cal State system because my first exposure of ethnic studies came through my collegiate experience, where although my undergraduate school did not offer courses in ethnic studies or ethnic studies majors, a lot of the Cal State schools in Los Angeles, University of California, and private schools like Loyola Marymount do offer ethnic studies majors such as Chicano Studies, Asian Pacific Islander Studies as well. Ethnic studies does aim to present the history from the perspective of others, or the other, in order to give a much more rounded version of the event. Ethnic studies aims to emphasize the social and historical study of race and racism in the U.S. As an ethnic studies educator, we aim to teach students about the dynamics of race, racism, structural violence, colonialism, assimilation, legalized discrimination, and the impact of these processes. And we also aim to teach about the ethnic and cultural diversity, community, and identity as well. There is a lot to cover. In some cases, we only get a semester. In some cases, we do get the full year. And those in itself present challenges, and we'll talk about some of those challenges as well. So why do we need ethnic studies? So it is often assumed that white folks, and we're just gonna go straight into the topic of race, white folks often assume that publishers took care, quote unquote, of the bias that we see in textbooks. However, we have noticed that this is not true. Textbooks are incredibly biased. Textbooks are usually written by white men, his story, and therefore the history that we get a lot in through K through 12 is a very we'll just call it what it is, very whitewashed, very passive version of history. I give my students the example when we speak about racism. Racism is a topic that in a lot of schools, a lot of high schools, maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks are spent on it, and then we, and I say we because I am a history teacher. Yes, there are pressures of the curriculum, testing, and all that stuff. But, we say, okay, slavery happened. Slavery was bad. Here's some of the rebellions. Here's why it stopped. And, all right, slavery ended. And we kind of mark that as the end of racism. And Reconstruction is focused on it very lightly. Really, Reconstruction sometimes focuses on the issues that white folks, Southern white folks, encountered, and that's an example of how textbooks are biased. But there is an assumption that by many white people that the textbooks did take care of this bias. What we are noticing is there's deeper patterns and narratives that reflect really Euro-American experience and worldviews. That is traditionally structured in K through 12 textbooks, especially in history and social text. Texts say little to nothing about contemporary race relations, racism, or racial issues, and they usually sanitize them. They usually don't make them as big, the big issues that they really are, and that's a little concerning. Furthermore, as the studies say, the result of continuing to minimize attention to racism or white complicity is that students perceive racism as a tragedy of the past, divorced from other historical issues, and the contemporary realities of powers in American history. Again, in layman terms, racism happened, we took care of it, everything's good. No, we still see that today. To bring it home a little more, this conference this year is in Hawaii. Hawaii is a very beautiful place that my wife and family and I have visited many times. And one of the things that we think makes Hawaii beautiful is the people. And the fact that Hawaii is, if not one of the only states where a racial minority is the majority. And where the culture of Hawaii encompasses that racial majority. But now we're seeing an influx of white Americans primarily moving into Hawaii and pushing out Native Hawaiians. But there is no context being provided. There's a racial context there as being largely ignored. And again, the whitewashing of a state. With that said, says when textbooks authors bury a history of American racism within a larger narrative of inevitable American progress, which is what a lot of people are saying about people moving to Hawaii. Students perceive race relations as a linear trajectory of improvement rather than a messy, continual struggle over power that encompasses both progress and, in the case of decades after Reconstruction, significant steps backwards in terms of racial justice. Money is a form of racism. When you are moving to another state, to another place, because yes, it is beautiful, but you are now forcing the people who made this place beautiful out. It is structural racism at its finest. Lastly, why we need ethnic studies. So this is from the San Francisco Unified School District Superintendent. The biggest things that happen in an ethnic studies course, I believe, is that students get to approach an academic course from the perspective of their own experience. That is why we need ethnic studies. If there's anything to take from this slide, it's that last point. Furthermore, we have noticed that by the time students reach high school, students of color are not only aware of the bias that exists, the European and American bias that exists in the curriculum, but they can describe it in detail. And it does contribute to their disengagement. And I will have more on that later. I teach seniors and I teach sophomores. My ethnic studies is only offered to seniors. There is a palpable disdain from some of them about history because they don't feel it relates to them. Why? Because it's not from their perspective. White parents, says, like their children, thought of only European and white Americans as nation builders, portrayed blacks as victims and one-time freedom fighters, as Native Americans as first survivors and later victims of government policies. They never mentioned whites as perpetrators or beneficiaries of racism, unless they were Southern whites, and 80% believe that blacks have achieved equal rights today. This is not just at the level of students. You have students' parents thinking this. This is why perspective matters. Ethnic studies, by allowing for multiple voices to enter dialogue constructing the narrative of this country, is critical to the development of democracy that actually includes everyone. I'm going to touch a bit on CRT as well, and how this does cross-pollinate, for lack of better words, with CRT and why that might present issues. We have a new term called pan-ethnic studies, which connects related fields of ethnic studies, critical pedagogy, post-colonial studies, critical race theory, or CRT, I should say, multicultural education, and youth popular culture. So, CRT or ethnic studies, which one is it? They are different. Excuse me. They are different, but they relate. So, CRT or CRE, critical race theory, or cultural responsive teaching, cultural responsive education, many names by it, has been at the forefront of many political conversations through the last and current election cycle, with many proponents against CRT, citing that CRT only compounds the problem, creates uncomfortable classroom environments, and makes students feel bad and promotes quote-unquote white guilt. Ethnic studies courses for many anti-CRT proponents fall under this umbrella, and they therefore feel that they are not necessary to a high school curriculum. Here's an example of white supremacy. Because it makes white students feel uncomfortable, we should not teach it. My question then becomes, are black students not uncomfortable when topic of slavery comes up? Are Hispanic students and Asian students not uncomfortable when the topic of immigration comes up? We are. But we are the ones that have to grin it and bear it, apparently. The reality is that ethnic studies courses should contain components of CRT. I would argue that great ethnic studies courses should revolve around CRT. Is it possible to have an ethnic studies course where the focus is not CRT? Yes. I have heard of film classes where I can't remember the other school district. I wish I did. I know it's within LA. They offer a film studies course where they view films by primarily Latino directors, or have Latino themes, and they discuss either the filming aspect, the production aspects, or the plot lines, not necessarily the history. So yes, you can have both, but to me, a great ethnic studies course revolves around CRT. They belong together as well. So what does the research say? So what the research says, and I'm just going to try not to read through this, but it says students of colors. The research says students of colors are not engaged in the curriculum because it doesn't focus on them. What the research says is that ethnic studies curricula exist because of students of color have demanded an education that is relevant, meaningful, and affirming to their studies, to their identities. This is why the ethnic studies at my school exist. We have 2 ethnic studies courses, which I will touch upon later. But they came about because students requested it. Why can we not learn about our histories? it shouldn't take that, but it has, and I'm glad students are able to speak up. So, research on 5 literary curricula, 3 involving African American secondary students and 2 involving Native American students, documented significant growth in students' literacy skills when you have ethnic studies courses. We have research on 2 math and science curricula who found a positive impact on student achievement towards learning. And another research on 5 curricula, 3 in social studies, 1 in literature, 1 in life skills, found a positive impact on students' achievement and sense of agency. Furthermore, research found that the benefits for San Francisco Unified, and just for clarity, most of the research revolves around San Francisco Unified. That's the big challenge here, was that there is not a lot of research that follows students or has followed students to see how great the impact has been on ethnic studies, besides this one San Francisco Unified study. And it says that the students who took an ethnic studies course in 9th grade and lasted through high school resulted in higher attendance. They had higher graduation rates. They had higher enrollment in college compared to similarly matched students who did not take the course. Strikingly, large benefits of the course did not fade after 9th grade, but the course produced compelling and causally saw credible evidence. It showed power to change learning trajectories of students targeted for the study. 21% of the students who took the ethnic studies course, their GPA grew 1.4 out of 4 points. That is a whole grade level. And credits earned improved 23 out of 60 possible credits. So they earned more credits, about a third more credits than their counterparts. The ethnic studies students' graduation rates were 16 to 19% points greater than similar students who didn't take the course. And ethnic studies takers near the district 220 credit requirement for graduation. The non-takers had 20 fewer credits. So we're seeing that there is a motivating factor for these students who are in that ethnic studies course to do better in other courses. Lastly, the findings also demonstrate the classrooms that make historically marginalized students feel valued and welcome can unlock academic motivation and engagement. The research also said that overall, more than 90% of students involved graduated within 5 years, versus 75% of their peers. And students of ethnic studies were also 15% more likely to enroll in college within 6 years of 9th grade. And between 10 and 16 percentage points, more ethnic studies takers enrolled in college within a year or 2 of graduation. Some of us might look at these numbers and be like, well, they're marginal. Percentage-wise, sure, we can call them marginal. 10% at a school within San Francisco Unified. Let's say that's 1,000 students in a graduating class. That's 100 students more that are going to college, 150, 160. That is a large amount. Ethnic studies at the high school level. So currently only one state, and the only state that offers that it's going to require all students to take at least one semester of ethnic studies course to earn and attain their high school diploma is going to be the state of California. 27 states, state education departments, and DC do have academic standards that include ethnic studies. However, this does not mean that students are required to take an ethnic studies course. Simply, the standard exists within the current curriculum. This means that at some point or another, a teacher has to include anywhere from one lesson to maybe a unit that deals with ethnic studies. That is how you hit on the standard. So again, this could be one lesson to a whole unit. We don't know exactly the number. The state of Arizona in 2010, though, banned all ethnic studies classes in public schools. This was done in an effort to eliminate the Mexican American Studies program at Tucson Unified School District. 7 years later, a federal court overturned Arizona's 2010 ban or slash the law. Currently, it is up to individual school districts, charter networks, individual schools, and administration within these schools whether to offer any type of ethnic studies courses in most states, with California being the exception. Now there is challenges to the teaching of ethnic studies. As I mentioned in prior slides, there's topics of race, racism, structural violence, structural racism. Not every adult, not every teacher is not only comfortable with teaching these topics, not many teachers are equipped with doing this well. So what are some other challenges with including those? Finding good ethnic studies curriculum that meets respective state standards while encompassing CRT. That is the big one. Where are you going to find good curriculum? Well, that's the big one. Are you buying a package deal? Or are you trusting your instructor, your educator to create their curriculum? More on that in a second. The next challenge, entrusting teachers interested in teaching such subjects in creating their own ethnic studies curriculum, which will meet the respective state standards and encompass CRT. That is a challenge. I am lucky enough that I am allowed to create my own curriculum, but I'm not being given a packaged curriculum. Here's what we found online. Here's what you should teach. It is my own creation. That is a good thing. That can be a challenge as well. That can be a bad thing. It can be a very bad curriculum that this person creates. There is a balance. Third, finding curriculum designers who are experts in CRT and knowledgeable of ethnic studies. A lot of people get stuck like, well, companies like this don't exist. They do. This is not my company. I'm putting that out there right now. I will say that my wife is a founder of this company, but that is not the reason I'm plugging them. The reason I am plugging them is that this is their specialty. CRT, whether it's an ethnic studies, whether it's including CRT in your everyday lessons with it, whether it's mathematics, history, English, you name it, this is what they are experts in. So companies like this do exist, and if you or your school district's interested, I highly suggest that you reach out to them. They will change your curriculum and your students for the better through what they do. Finding staff at the school level who are comfortable tackling and teaching topics of race, racism, and inequality, racism, and structural violence. As I said, many adults are not comfortable. It's not a comfortable topic. When I say I don't care, I don't mean that I don't care in the sense of like, I don't want to teach it. I'm saying I don't care if it makes people uncomfortable. I believe in making folks uncomfortable in order to get comfortable with the topic of race. You're going to have students who feel uncomfortable too. It is what it is. The next challenge, do you have a diversity enough staff which may encourage the rise of different topics within the ethnic studies scope? If you have a staff that is primarily white, primarily Hispanic, primarily Black, primarily Asian, it's going to be very hard to offer other ethnic studies programs within other races. This is one of those times where, yes, I as someone who's Mexican American, I do not feel comfortable teaching a Black Studies course. Do I have the content knowledge for it? Absolutely. Do I have a complete cultural understanding? No. Would I still teach it? Yes. But it is my personal belief that a person that belongs to that ethnic group should be the one teaching it. When I say the rise of different topics, the more diverse your staff is, the more topics you can offer. If you can have Asian ethnic studies here course. You could have a Black studies course. You could have a Jewish ethnic studies course, etc. Just to name off the top of my head. Lastly, having supportive administration that will be supportive in the quality and topics of the class. In the events that there are challenges to the curriculum. Not everyone might agree. Not every student might feel comfortable. Do you have an administration that is willing to back you up? I'm glad to say that I do. So, my school. So we offer 2 ethnic studies courses, with each being a semester-long course. Black Studies and Latin American Studies. Black Studies was the first ethnic studies course introduced to the high school curriculum at UPCHS since the opening of the school in 2008. An effort to introduce a Latin American culture class did occur in 2011. However, this class was more rooted in history. I can speak to that because I was the Latin American culture teacher, history teacher, and it was a history course. We didn't really focus on race or racism or structural race, violence, structural racism. Yes, the topics came up, but it was more, here's what has happened in these countries, so on and so forth. A lot more background. I wouldn't call it an ethnic studies course. The courses were introduced due to student need and request from the student body in adding ethnic studies courses. Black Studies is currently being offered for the 3rd academic year, while my class is in its 1st year. Both classes aim to speak about race, racism, colorism, structural racism, and many other facets and its relationship to the history and experiences of Black Americans and Latinos. These classes meet the needs of our student body as well, which is primarily Black and Latino. Lastly, these students take these courses in the fall and spring semester of their senior year. In my class, here are the topics that we cover. We cover about 4 units. It's a semester-long class. The Latinx, Latino identity. So this is just a brief overview. We explore what is Latino, what is Latina, what is Latinx, where does the term come from. We go into defining the diaspora and culture as well. We go into, the numbering is wrong, I apologize. Independence, revolution, and immigration. This is primarily the impact. We explore the independence from Spain and the impact Spain had on identity. This is big. As someone who has had a slight infatuation with Spain in the past, I never understood where it came from until I really reflected and started looking into this topic more. That in many ways we have always, in Latin America, we've always held Spain as the standard because they are our European counterpart, right? Exploring Latin America's divorce from Spain and exploring immigration in the past and now. Third, this is a little bit more history-based, but we do talk about the Dominican Republic, dictatorship, genocide, and race. But we get into the topic of race here a lot. The impact of colorism and ethnic identity. Trujillo's whitewashing of the DR's population and identity and its impact today. The Dominican Republic is a great example of where racism really comes in. Discrimination, prejudice, the Haitian genocide, how an island shared by 2 groups of people who look so much alike but our culture is so different has created such a visceral environment within the island. And lastly, we're covering civil rights and civil wars. The Latino Latinx people's role in the fight for civil rights in the 60s, such as the East LA walkouts, and the American influence and involvement in Latin America in the 80s and its impact on immigration and Latino identity as well. So I did a survey. Now, for full transparency, I have about 60 students, 65 students. Unfortunately, only 31 of them took the survey. had quite a few absences in the last week of school, and some of them just didn't do it. And these are the 4 questions that they were asked. The data is right here. Most of them reacted positively. Has taking ethnic studies class increased your interest in history? I think this is a love or hate kind of thing question, right? But when you look at how they felt about their interest in social issues, their interest in other history subjects, would they have taken ethnic studies courses from freshman year? They had the opportunity. The data clearly shows that they would have. So what does the data show, right? So the quantitative data shows that there is very minimal, that the data out there shows that there's very minimal, with the most studies citing the San Francisco Unified School District implementation of this program as a barometer. There's not a lot of information, as I said earlier. This is reflective of the lack of research and the lack of school and districts out there offering ethnic studies courses on a larger scale. The state of California's requirement of ethnic studies as a graduation requirement will provide a much larger pool. What does the qualitative data say? As I said, not all my students took it. The data demonstrates that taking ethnic studies courses has increased their interest in overall in all 4 categories. However, the one question that did not show an overwhelming amount of positivity was an increase in the subject of history. Yet 87% of students in the class have stated that it increased their interest in social issues. 80% stated has increased their interest in other history subjects, and that they would have taken other ethnic studies courses if offered yearly in high school. I strongly believe that if I have my other 20 students take the survey, which I'm still going to ask them to do, that these numbers will not change much. Maybe a percentage point or 2 up or down, but the data overwhelmingly shows that there is an interest and there is an impact on students. And imagine if they could have taken this from the beginning. Why it matters. Research shows that students are more engaged in social issues as a result of ethnic studies. There is an increase in student engagement, graduation rates, overall increase in GPA. Ethnic studies courses present an opportunity for students whose history has been either ignored or marginalized to better understand not only their culture, but the systems in place that may have contributed to social standings, economic standings. In response to creating uncomfortable environments for white students or the promotion of white guilt, these courses do not aim to make white students feel bad, but simply provide a well-rounded historical analysis. Studies actually show that white students who have taken ethnic studies courses are more open to anti-racist work. They're more aware of their microaggressions and the systems in place that have kept others from achieving more. All that to say, this is necessary. This is we need to do the work. The anti-racism work, and simply the work to make history in school more inclusive. My email is srtiaga. I will actually go back to the first slide. So it is the getting there. The first letter of my first name, my last name, at uppublicschools.org. If any of you have any questions about this topic, would like to learn more, would like to have access to my curriculum, please feel free to email me. Thank you, and I appreciate your time.